In the world of fashion, there are few stories as inspiring and captivating of that of Sass and Bide. Founded by best friends Heidi Middleton and Sarah Jane Clarke, this Australian fashion brand has risen to global prominence with its unique designs, innovative approach and relentless pursuit of creativity. From humble street market beginnings becoming a fashion empire, we delve into the remarkable journey of Sass and Bide, exploring the pivotal role played by its founders, the brand's major hit pieces, notable shows in Sydney, London and New York Fashion Weeks, and the significant collections and celebrity endorsements and their legacy.
So I'm Heidi Middleton. I was half of Sass and Bide, 50% founder of Sass and Bide with Sarah Jane back in the early 2000s, and we sold the business in 2013. Moved to France for a few years, and now I've started a new sustainable fashion business called Art Club, and that's how I occupy my days.
I'm Sarah Jane Clarke, and I co-founded Sass and Bide with Heidi Middleton in 1999, and we were in the business until 2013.
I think it's very important for us to tell our story and help the new generation that's coming through. I do a lot of work with the younger designers, mentoring them and giving them help that they need to launch their own businesses. So I know Heidi, you do a lot of work too with the younger fashion designers too, but yes, I think it's very important to pay it forward to.
So I grew up in Brisbane, and I went to St Aidan's Girls College over in Corinda in Brisbane, and during my school years I really did love the creative industry. I thought at the time I was going to be a window dresser. At 15, that was my big goal. So I always sort of had an interest in fashion, but I actually ended up going to study. I did a Bachelor of Business and I majored in accountancy. So I did a business degree because I thought that's a good, solid foundation for anything that I may want to do in the future. So that actually worked for me, because then when we did start Sass and Bide, I was able to do all the
Bridget.
the budgets and all the financial reports and that type of thing. So yeah.
I grew up with very creative mum. She was always fostering creativity in the arts with my brother and I. So we were always making things and painting and making things out of nature. And we had a big creative box which was discarded packaging from things, and we'd always be creating with this box of things that Mum had collected. And a lot of my childhood was spent outdoors. I had horses, so I used to ride to school every day in primary school.
On your horse?
Yeah, on my horse. I don't think they'd allow it these days, but so I'd ride my horse. The boys would ride their BMXs. If I wasn't on the horse, I'd be painting, drawing. I met SJ around this time, so I was I think 21, you were 18. You were still just out of school. We met through two Greek boyfriends who were best friends and connected instantly, and our real shared passion was this just absolute love of fashion and styling and dressing up. We actually would get design and have clothes made on the by this little tailor in West End in Brisbane to make these outfits for the following weekend, and we kept sort of we're quite busy with that, just dressing ourselves, but sort of having these things tailor-made.
Now, the first part of the Sass and Bide story covers the expeditions of the brand's founders, Sass, Sarah Jane Clarke, and Bide, Heidi Middleton, on their journey from Portobello Road to the world of high fashion. From their critically acclaimed runways in London, New York, and even their Australian home, Sass and Bide have captured the imagination of strong, creative women everywhere, accruing celebrity attention and almost cult status for their own brand of bohemian glamour.
And yeah, so then that was where our friendship was born, and then the Greek boys sort of disappeared into the distance, and we forged ahead and ended up moving to London. Yeah, we loved growing up in Brisbane, but I think we were hungry for more. We were excited about, we
needed to explore.
We needed
to spread the wings and feel the energy of London. We've always heard about the creativity and the energy that flows through that city, so we just thought, that's our place.
Yes, London was really having an incredibly creative, moment. It was there was just a really strong undercurrent of creative energy that we were able to tap into. So it really fueled our sort of creative spirit.
The name Sass and Bide took a long time to sort of come to light, because we had maybe 2 or 3 other names that we really wanted, but every time we went to register one of those, that they would say, already taken, got to find, it actually forced us to find a more original name. So that's where Sass and Bide became, because, Sass being a nickname and Bide being a childhood nickname of Heidi's. Heidi, Bidey, Bidey, Bobo.
Yes.
We love our vintage and our styling pieces, so we like to, heavily style the shows and use all of our favourite vintage pieces that we find around the world.
And despite handing over the reins of their empire a decade ago, the personal vision of Clark and Middleton lives on through their legacy and their legends. The young entrepreneurs would test their business acumen and innate flair on the hallowed but humble grounds of London's Portobello markets. Once a pit stop for bric-a-brac and antiquities, it became the epicentre of hip West London, frequented by thousands of tourists as well as British pop royalty like Kate Moss and Sienna Miller. Portobello Markets was the birthplace of many designers, a place to be discovered if one is seen to be offering something new. Heidi and SJ tapped into London's love for bohemian subculture, expressing freedom and authenticity with their hand-worked low-cut denim jeans, which achieved cult status in the late 90s.
We absolutely loved being at those markets every Friday, and
and London, it was really where, McQueen was having his moment in the spotlight, and, it felt like in London, anything was possible. You could really make your dreams come true there. And I think that's what really happened with us. We got there and we just got sort of swept away with that creative energy, and it allowed us to form, actually, first of all, we ended up selling some embellished denim pieces at Portobello Road, the markets, didn't we?
We did.
It was a little moment.
We would buy secondhand Levi's, cut the bottoms off and attach about 5 inches of raffia trim that we'd buy from a haberdashery store. And they were cool at the time, but so we'd sell them at the Portobello markets, and they were like hotcakes. They'd fly out the door, and kept that sort of response to the product and things we were creating just fueled our ambitions and excitement to do more. So we started, we had the Portobello stall every Friday and Saturday, still had our day jobs in London, but then we was around that time that we thought, let's take this further. Like, we decided I remember we had dinner at a Chinese restaurant in London in the East End and talked that night about starting a brand together. I'm Heidi Middleton.
And I'm Sarah Jane Clark, and we're from Sass and Bide. Well, I think the brand is fun.
There's often a little bit of humour sort of, woven through the label, and, we take what we do very seriously, but there's definitely a lightness and free-spiritedness to the aesthetic. Yeah, the lifestyle in London, our lifestyle in London, we were very, we're sociable creatures, so we were going to lots of parties and meeting great creative people all across, the arts. We were stylists and other, designers. We met a lot of people through our network at the Portobello Road markets. So we just were, if our visas hadn't expired, we would definitely have stayed on. We were just absolutely loving our time there.
This mix of relaxed Australian glamour and the rebellious undertones of British punk would form the hallmarks of Sass and Bide's bohemian foundations. A signature so in demand that girls were literally lining up and fighting each other to get their hands on a pair of the infamous East Village jeans. Now, the East Village hipster jeans was their breakout iconic piece, and it was characterised by its low-rise waist, distressed details and unique washes. It captured the essence of urban cool and quickly gained popularity amongst fashion-forward females the world over, becoming a symbol of edgy, effortless style. Sass and Bide's mastery of denim extended beyond their designs. They incorporated revolutionary techniques and treatments into their denim pieces, such as laser cutting, hand-painted details, and experimental washes. These innovative approaches to denim production set them apart from their contemporaries and solidified their reputation as denim pioneers.
We arrived back in Sydney and we decided that we would set up our very chic office on my kitchen bench, wasn't it? It was in my kitchen in Bondi. And so we stayed there and we designed and made our first pieces from the kitchen bench. But then as the business started growing and we started getting a few sales in the door, we thought it's time to move into a little space, which we ended up in Double Bay. And that's when the brand probably really started to take off, because our first product was the East Village jean. And that was really riding the movement of the hipster jean. So it was low 2-inch zip, it was stretch, it was vintage looking. So it was just the right product for the right time. And that was the first item that we launched.
The first official Sass and Bide product, and then we couldn't keep up with demand. I remember the denim makers out at was it no, not Marrickville. Was it Marrickville? Sort of west Sydney. Mick and Gino, they sort of felt sorry for us with our first production run. They said, look, there's no way this 2-inch zip jean is going to sell.
Because they said it was just too low.
Too low.
Too low. Girls are never going to buy this. And we're like, okay, but let's just do it anyway.
Yeah, so we did, and then we just couldn't keep up with demand really for a long time. So there were queues, blocks long, all around the country really. Like, it was quite there was so much hype around those first couple of products. So we did the East Village jean in 2 washes.
Yeah, so our very first product was this super low vintage wash jean, which we called the East Village jean. And at the time, there was nothing that low on the market. So when we briefed this into our makers back in Sydney after returning from London, the makers actually confided to us later that they were really concerned when we briefed in. They felt bad taking our money for the first production run, because they sort of said there's no way this jean, will sell. It's too low. It had a 2-inch zip, and was made out of a vintage wash stretch denim, about a 3% stretch. And we did it in two colourways. We did it in an indigo darker blue, and then this sort of vintage wash, which they sold sort of equally. Both sold out. Sort of, we couldn't make them fast enough at the time. We sort of. What was great was that was funding the cash, the cash flow for the business, because we were demanding COD for the product, and the product was selling out, so we were able to sort of fund our growth without going to banks or doing anything like that in those early days. We did the two sort of shapes. We did a sort of slightly bootleg, and then a vintage flare, which was what we called a super flare. And yeah, these first few styles we were very fortunate that they just hit the market and took off straight away. And so it was really just such an exciting time to watch these products just sort of walking off the shelves.
And then we brought out the Funky Thompson, which is a denim jacket. And then, the flare, the vintage flare, and all these products just seemed to, there was just a bit of a frenzy around the denim.
And it was all pre-social media, so there wasn't any, it was all word of mouth. So the word had gotten around that the Sass and Bide jeans deliver on a Tuesday. So there'd always be a line outside the stockist waiting for us to drop off the jeans. And so it was really, it really had a lot of energy around.
And it was good for the business because we demanded COD at the time. So that was really, we didn't need any external investment. The business was funding itself. So the jeans were just flying out, all the denim was, people were paying on, COD, and that really allowed us to grow, quickly, but organically we didn't have any banks to sort of answer to at that time. And we managed it all from this little office Sarah Jane was saying in Double Bay. There was a Woolworths down the street, so we'd go and flirt with the the fruit section boys, and get free cardboard cartons to pack the jeans in. So that was we were quite happy with that. We didn't have to spend on packaging.
Heidi and Sarah Jane, to me, were women who was somebody I really looked up to, not just for their design work, but also for their business acumen. I felt like they were so inspiring in every way, and also bringing a whole new dimension to Australian fashion. So everyone had the pair of these village jeans.
Clearly the girls had ambition, and they had drive, and they knew what they were doing. I remember hanging out with them in New York, and we saw them on outside Barney's, and they had people filming them and people taking photos and blah 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 and all the rest of it, and I thought, what are they doing? What are they doing? They were onto the whole social media thing just as it was beginning, and they were very aware that promoting themselves was promoting their brand.
They were really good at that, weren't they?
They were very good at that. They were the embodiment of their brand, and that's what every girl and woman bought into. They wanted to be them.
Yeah, some of the sort of well-known identities at the time that started wearing the jean were Kylie Minogue, Victoria Beckham, Madonna, had Kate Moss, a lot of her sort of crew in London were wearing them. We ended up, we didn't have a big marketing budget to start with, so we just sent product out to girls that girls about town, whether it was internationally or in Australia. And that just was a great move because we weren't having to sort of invest hundreds of thousands in marketing campaigns, but we just would send this product that people would send it to, would love it and wear it, and then it would just cause this viral marketing sort of phenomenon where word of mouth was pre-internet and Instagram and all of that. So it was being spread. The word was being spread through just people wearing the product, loving it, talking about it. Journalists writing about it, and then people getting photographed in it. And and away it went.
I don't think that there was a girl in Australia that didn't have a pair of Sass and Bide jeans. I certainly did. I remember going and visiting their Paddington store, and it was just so exciting to have these, you know, denim is all about brands, and these two girls were so edgy and cool and sort of rock chic, and, you know, did this incredible job of creating this wonderful brand.
Sass and Bide debuted their first seasonal collection at Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week in 2001 under the New Gen or Next Generation group. And this initiative enabled select newcomers a crack at the big time in what it is and was a very tumultuous and unforgiving industry. Strangely enough, within that same batch of newcomers was Australia's own bad boys of denim, Dan Single, George Gorrow, and Gareth Moody, aka Subi. With both genders catered for, the era of Australian designer denim was born.
Occasionally in this job you catch a glimpse of dreams realised, of deserved success from small beginnings. Here in New York I found such a story. On its crowded sidewalks and busy streets, I found two of the most fashionable names in fashion, and they're Australian.
They were just great fun. We loved their energy. They were, you know, rule breakers, just sort of, I don't know, they were good friends, you know, they became good friends. So I think it was nice to be going through that at a similar time, because we would just, you know, friends and a lot of interesting creative friends. It was this whole...
Yeah, it was a whole lifestyle for them, wasn't it? It was just a tribe, the Subi tribe, and they just demanded presence, and everywhere they went, they just, you know, they had an energy, a great energy about them.
Clearly remember meeting Dan Single at the denim facility, the denim maker, and he was wearing a candy pink women's jumper, sort of off the shoulder, and he had this peroxided hair. And we were like, who? But he looks out of place here. He looks like someone we would have met in one of the nightclubs in London or something, not downtown Marrickville or wherever it was. So we struck up a conversation that day, and, you know, became great friends very quickly. We had we were invited to, as part of a group show, to show 12 pieces, which was a big deal for us. And then after that, we did our first solo show, which was at the Powerhouse Station. Sorry,
I've
not
gone straight to the museum. No, you're right. It was
Power
the Power
Station.
Station over in Glebe.
Just over the bridge,
That was
Anzac
our
Bridge.
first solo show.
The description we've sort of been using is it was part preppy, it had quite a preppy feel, and then sort of Tibetan princess, and then with a little bit of ghetto chic, like a bit tough girl with the motocross pants. So it was a clash of sort of three looks, and then a few other little bits sprinkled in as well.
They had just returned to Australia after a very successful stint at the Portobello markets in London, and they were actually in the Paddington markets in Australia, and creating a bit of hype there. And I met them and they came into my office, and I was like, girls, what are you doing? It's fantastic. We need to have you involved in Australian Fashion Week. And you know, what you're doing in denim is quite incredible. It's just amazing. This whole new design that you're doing, it's really taking the world by storm. They came on board, but the beautiful thing about the girls is they just didn't show denim. For the first time ever, Sass and Bide showed ready to wear on the catwalk at Australian Fashion Week, and of course that really gave them the opportunity to grow that brand well beyond the denim capsule they originally had. And of course, you know, Sass and Bide went on to be one of the most successful brands in Australia. You know, they sold the company for a fortune, and Sarah Jane and Heidi are now progressed on and launching new creative ventures as well. So yeah, it was wonderful. And they also had a really keen sense of different creativity they brought to their collection shows. Sometimes they showed on site at Fox Studios and then later at the Overseas Passenger Terminal. Sometimes they showed in amazing warehouses around Sydney. Yeah, they really added a lot of great vibrancy, and of course they became one of the international superstars out of Australian Fashion Week.
That was sort of instrumental in sort of launching us in the ready-to-wear sort of sense, because we'd just been doing denim before that, and the denim had taken off. But we were invited to show as part of On Schedule, and this was the first show, and yeah, it was a great night. We loved the styling just as much as designing the clothes, so you can see, you know, the styling was sort of unique.
Yeah, we really went to town on the styling.
Yeah, it was a big, yeah, so our first show was called, it wasn't Lady Punk.
No, it was...
No, Love Guard Gracie. Yeah, Love Guard Gracie.
Yeah, with the feathers.
Yeah. So we'd have fun naming the shows. So our first fashion show, solo show, was called Love Guard Gracie, and it was at the power station just underneath the Anzac Bridge. And I think it was a Mercedes Fashion Week then, so we turned up in, remember, turning up in
you did.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was very, I think they were really inspired from when they started at was it Portobello Road? At the markets and all of that. It was lots of kind of vintagey pieces mixed together in the way that it girls and cool girls kind of put it all together, and they just kind of hit on the right items at the right time that girls wanted to wear. I mean, every girl wanted to look like that.
Didn't you?
Don't bring me in on that.
And I had a wig on that night. Remember, I had a wig because I'm naturally curly. I had a wig with this straight fringe, a bit. I don't know what the look was, but anyway, I thought it was pretty special at the time. So we had a great lineup of models and a packed house, and we got really strong press after that first show. So that was all. It felt like we were being carried along. You know, there are sometimes those moments in life when you feel like you're being carried by an external energy or force. We were just on this ride, and yes, we were working hard, very hard, but it was also this energy. It was just sort of from every level and layer. It was just very positive and very dynamic, and there was just so much great reaction to what we were doing, so we just, you know.
Yeah, remember we've got the front cover of Good Living, wasn't it? When they used to do the fashion in Good Living. So it was our first front cover that we ever got, which was very exciting for us at the time.
Yeah.
But it was just, I think our first solo show was a monumental moment that we had pulled that together, and that, you know, we felt like we had really made it as a brand here in Australia. And then that sort of made us look a little bit more internationally and we thought, well, maybe we should go and conquer the world.
Wow. Less than a year later, in 2002, Sass and Bide would present their ready-to-wear line in London. And in 2004, they took on the Big Apple, New York City.
love our vintage and our styling pieces, so we like to, you know, heavily style the shows and use all of our favourite vintage pieces that we find around the world.
If they're rapidly becoming the name on everyone's lips, that's largely because they're being seen on some very famous hips. Madonna, Kate Moss and Robbie Williams in Subi jeans. Paris Hilton, Sarah Jessica Parker and Kylie and Elle in Sass and Bide. Even Mick Jagger's daughter, Lizzie.
As a woman, do they make you feel special, powerful?
Yeah, sexy.
In New York, it was Fashion Week. Few are invited, fewer succeed. At the casting for models for their show, Heidi Middleton and Sarah Jane Clarke, the women behind the Sass and Bide label, were still soaking it in.
It's really a bit surreal, actually. I mean, here we are in New York, two best friends from Brisbane, casting these amazing girls with a beautiful collection. It's like, we've got to pinch ourselves.
Yeah, we do. We did that in the taxi on the way from the airport, you know, just had a little moment, bestie moment. We were just saying it feels sort of surreal looking at it now because it was such a busy time, and like Sarah Jane said earlier, we didn't have a chance to sort of stop and recalibrate and reflect and things. So it's, yeah, mixed emotions. I mean, I love seeing this. We were laughing about the haircuts and the styling. And
oh yeah, this was really at like our peak of frenzy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in the peak.
Frenzy was really happening here.
Yeah.
Seeking inspiration from weekend markets, they started making clothes. At first, just to please themselves, but soon Heidi and Sarah Jane realised they had a talent and the desire.
Do you know what era, roughly?
I would say about 1940s.
40s, beautiful.
So 5 years ago, and with no formal training, they quit their jobs and risked everything to begin their Sass and Bide business. 3 years ago, while walking around New York, they ran into Sarah Jessica Parker on location for Sex and the City.
She called us over and she loved what we were wearing. She was like, who are you and where are the clothes from? And I love your look. And the next day we were in her trailer with our suitcase pulling out our Sass and Bide pieces, pulling out our wares.
We had just finished an appointment at Bloomingdale's with the sales buy there, and we were walking home to our hotel. And as we were going, we looked over to the side and there was the filming of Sex and the City. So you know how they filmed a lot on the streets. So we just happened to walk past and we were like, oh, that's Sarah Jessica Parker. And we were like, we've got to give her something now so that she knows about the brand. So we're like, okay, well, let's give her the denim jacket that I was wearing, because we only really had the, I don't know,
a few pieces on us, yeah.
So why didn't we give her a new one?
I don't think we had a suitcase or anything. I think we'd had the appointment and then we were just walking in what we were wearing. And then we said, let's give her a funky Thompson jacket, which is what you had on. So we went and tapped the security guard on the shoulder. I thought, well, if you don't ask, you don't get. We might as well try. So we asked him, told him our story. We're an Aussie brand, showing him, selling our wares in New York. Would you possibly give this to Sarah Jessica as a gift? And he sort of looked at us and looked us up and down, and they were having a little break in filming, so he marched over to Sarah Jessica. You could see him just telling her about the jacket and pointing to us, and we're sort of waving. And then she was like, I love this. Oh my God, they design, I love this. This is so me. And then she suddenly beckoned us. Oh no, she came over. She came over.
And she said, girls, thank you so much for this jacket. I absolutely love it. I want to see more of the collection.
Like, have you got more
Meet me
pieces
tomorrow.
Here? Yeah.
In my trailer, 11 o'clock.
Yeah. We're like, okay, see you then.
We'll do that.
So then we met, and I think Big was there, wasn't he? Because he was obviously dating her on the show at the time. So he came into the trailer when we were doing our little fittings, and we spent an hour or two with her, and she actually ordered on the spot a lot of pieces that she then went on to wear on the show.
Amazing.
Sass and Bide's design philosophy was rooted in the belief that fashion should be empowering and expressive. Middleton and Clark sought to create pieces that celebrated individuality and challenged conventional norms. Their designs often blended elements of streetwear, bohemian aesthetics, but with couture craftsmanship, resulting in a distinct and eclectic style.
That was one of the New York shows. I know my daughters came to that show. I'd try and bring them with me as much as I could. I didn't like being separated from them, so we'd bring the nanny or my mum and bring the whole entourage on tour to shows. Again, on a rooftop in New York. We did keep showing and creating through the pregnancies, but I think SJ looks quite heavily pregnant there, so I think she gave birth a couple of months later. A lot of styling going on here. There's a lot going on. Earmuffs, a harness, yeah, a bit of Scottish sort of influence and punk. And I keep telling my girls it was cool at the time. They're a bit like, I'm not sure they're buying that anymore. That was our first on-schedule show at Fashion Week, so that was in the power station. And that was sort of the beginning of it all. Yeah, so I'd often sketch up just what I wanted the models to look like. I guess in the back of my mind it was sometimes probably subconsciously sort of just imagining Sass and I in the clothes, but yeah, I always liked sort of to sketch the styling concept with the headpieces and harnesses and footwear. So yeah, that was one from Birds of Passage. They had these sort of embellished little skull caps which Renya worked into with the hand.
The girls were confident, creatively fearless, and they worked 24/7 to fuel their brand's rocket ride. They joke about the pressures now, but it must have been crushing at the time.
Heidi and SJ, great marketing team, fantastic and fabulous. I was always so jealous they had each other. It was like, they had the support, and between, Heidi was a great designer and a great editor and right on everything that was on trend, and they were also two great ambassadors for their brand. And SJ was great at marketing, incredible team, great duo, and what they brought to Australia was the little zip jean, and I think it's something that everybody wanted to have. And what they did and how they sold their business and set it up was genius, really.
I'd travelled a lot, and Sarah Jane had as well, and we were also picked up by sort of Harvey Nichols and Barney's sort of early on, like in the first year. So I think we were seeing the designs set in an international forum, not we weren't thinking, domestically or just to sort of design pieces that would suit the Australian market. At the end of the day, we would design pieces that we wanted to wear. So it was always about, what are we missing in the wardrobe? What are we coveting? What do we feel? What are we feeling that we want to be wearing? What sort of direction? Usually it had a bit of a theatrical sort of graphic element to it too. So there was yeah, we just played into that.
The girls from Sass and Bide, I've always had a great respect for them. Always have been very delightful, very natural, very warm. They introduced the fashion scene here to something different, right? They introduced a lot of Art Deco beading and interesting cuts, and people who were trying to look for something different in clothing, and that's why the Sass and Bide label became such a success. It was a good time. The Australian fashion industry needed those girls because they did something different. They actually brought the disco era back. They did lots of applique stars and beaded sequin stars on jeans and tassels, and they brought fun. Interesting fun back to the fashion industry, which is, as I've said, fashion should be fun.
Many. There were quite a few hiccups on the way. Like running any business, it's not all fun and glamour, and it's a lot of hard work. You're in the trenches a lot. It's probably 5% of it is
glamorous.
The glamorous side of parties and socialising, but generally Heidi and I didn't do a lot of lunches, or we just simply didn't have the time. Like we would do events that we needed to or we wanted to support, but we really weren't very social, were we? Because we were just busy.
I'd farm Sarah Jane out because just to do the socialising half the time.
We had to divide and conquer because Heidi would be pushing out the next collection, and I just knew she'd look at me and I'd go, okay, I'll go.
Yeah.
So we sort of had a nice team energy that if one of us couldn't do something, the other one would step up or step in and take the place of, and so we were lucky that we had that supportive working relationship.
There was also a playfulness in their style. In their offices, there's a life-size horse figure, a nod to Heidi's love of riding. And their show hair magician, Renya Zaidas, once coiffed mini ponies, toy ponies, into the models' hairstyles in one of their shows. Installations in their office showrooms also include an aviary of taxidermy birds and various arts installations.
Sass and Bide, wow, they were fun. I can remember, again begging them to do business with us, me and my boss. I think we wrote them their first significant order. I don't know whether they'd like me to tell you this, but we had to pay them in cash on delivery, which is something that David Jones never did. And within the blink of an eye, we'd had them in all stores, and we were writing orders of thousands and thousands and thousands of jeans. And I can remember they did what they called a black rat, which was a rather curious pair of ruched tights, and they sold for $149. And the buyer wrote an order for 100 pair, and I said, don't be ridiculous, make it 1,000. And I remember my boss saying, don't be ridiculous, make it 5,000. And so we all crossed our hands and waited for this delivery, and they were gone in, 2 days. So then we were writing 10,000 pair and 20,000 pair. I mean, it was obscene. And those girls, again, were, they're the perfect example of having a creative vision, sticking to that vision, having a plan, gathering people around them that were smarter than them in other parts of their business. And they were extraordinarily successful. And that brand still exists today. The girls have gone on to do all sorts of things, but that brand is still a successful fashion brand today. Perhaps not at the peak of its success, but it still means something in this market. I think they were probably one of the first to open an international store. I can remember walking into that store on, I'm going to say Bleecker Street, but I'm probably wrong, and being so extraordinarily impressed that they managed to get to the point where they were offering their product to an American customer who wasn't short of a pair of jeans to buy, by the way. I think the smart designers particularly, whether there's two of them or singularly, are smart, as I said before, are smart enough to know what they don't know, and so they gather people around them that balance out the skill set. And I think they're the ones that predominantly succeed because, you know, there's either a yin and a yang in the two design team, you know, in the sort of the two founders, I should say. And if there's not, they're smart enough to bring somebody on who can accelerate their business in a way that they could never, in a business sense.
Show by show, the girls continue to go from strength to strength, rounding out their style with sharp tailoring, cultural embellishments, distinct prints, and easy glamour for over a decade of runway presentations across London and New York's prestigious fashion weeks, main stages.
London was always, London Fashion Week was always more creative than New York Fashion Week. But New York had that.
New York was
kudos
much more
because
commercial.
Yeah, commercial and about
business.
bigger
It's about
budgets,
and
bigger-
it's about writing business the next day, and you know, like it's 3 or 4 days of sales after the show. You really are there for a purpose, and that's to, you know, expand brand and.
Sass and Bide were amazing. Oh, I don't think that there was a girl in Australia that didn't have a pair of Sass and Bide jeans. I certainly did. I remember going and visiting their Paddington store, and it was just so exciting to have these, you know, denim is all about brands, and these two girls were so edgy and cool and sort of rock chic, and, you know, did this incredible job of creating this wonderful brand. Those girls were just so loved by everyone. Jason Brunston was saying to me, you know, how gorgeous they were, and it was, you know, they're very loved in the industry. That was an incredible time. It was just, again, a really buoyant time in retail. And I remember actually, one thing about Sass and Bide that I remember is going to London and looking at Sass and Bide over in London, and I think the jeans at the time were like $200 in Australia, and they were like £200 in London. And I was like, well, that equates to like $600. But they were huge.
Seeing our pieces hanging in Harvey Nichols and Barney's and some of the other stockists around the world was really a pinch me moment, because there we were, two girls from Brisbane, and our pieces in the best department stores around the world. So it was very exciting, and we met a lot of great buyers, and they were really willing to help us and, you know, expand our range planning so that we could do good business with them. And so we were very lucky that we did get a lot of help. Like, a lot of people were very willing to help us, and they wanted us to succeed. So that was.
We were really fortunate to have such great support from, you know, people in, you know, in magazines, in newspapers, journalists, stylists. You know, we really felt that people were very willing and wanting to sort of help us, knowing that we were a new burgeoning label. And so we started to get a lot of coverage and exposure through the magazines. I remember even Australian Vogue asking us to guest edit, and then from then, you know, I think the UK Italian Vogue started to pick up the brand. So there was one big drama. It was when we'd arranged, or we had been called to have a meeting with Kylie Minogue at the private the private dressing rooms at Harvey Nichols in Knightsbridge. And obviously that was a pretty big deal for us at the time. We were only a year or two old, I think, the brand. And I don't know why were we late? I think it
was London traffic.
Yeah, London traffic. So we had to jump out of the taxi, I think. And we had these suitcases with all of our samples in them. And like Sarah Jane described earlier, we were dressed to the nines with our, you know, top hats and pill hats and, you know, fishnet tights and studs and sequins.
Denim corsets, all of that.
And we had to jump out of the taxi and run about 10 blocks to Harvey Nichols because we were like, we can't keep Kylie Minogue waiting. But we did, and we were late, but we arrived all sort of sweaty and flustered.
Oh yes, we did have Beyonce wear our beautiful, it was from the collection Future Grand, and it was black, tight, fitted dress with all the bead...
tracking of beading.
Yeah, bead track work, and that was a pretty big moment. Now that was for...
That was, she presented at the MTV Awards. I can't remember what year, again it would have been like 2000... Probably 2006 or something like that, 2005.
I think it was actually 2008, that show.
Okay, I think you're right.
I remember Ziggy being, I think I was pregnant.
And then Taylor Swift wearing, she performed in Times Square one evening and wore one of our little ensembles.
And Kim Kardashian, she wore Sass and Bide back at the beginning.
Yeah, Paris Hilton.
She wore...
Well, one that really stands out is this party. It was London Fashion Week, and it was hosted by Jefferson Hack, who was editor of Dazed and Confused at the time, which was one of our favourite, magazines, sort of underground fashion magazines. And he was dating Kate at the time, Kate Moss. I think that was our off-schedule show, wasn't it? Because we weren't on schedule.
Yeah, it was off-schedule.
So we had an off-schedule show in a skate park underneath a train line. And it was probably 2000, when was it, 2000?
I'd like to think maybe about 2004.
Were the kids born? No, 2004.
3 kids.
Yeah, okay.
Or 3.
And anyway, during the week we were asked through this woman, Fran Cutler, who was Kate's best friend and one of her sort of PR girls, to come to go to Jefferson's party, and that was, we couldn't believe it, could we? I think it was pretty...
No, because we'd always admired Kate Moss. She was a real icon of our moment when we were when we had the business. So just to be basically to be in the same room with her, and also that she loved wearing our jeans was a big moment.
Good ambassador.
She was a great ambassador. So then to actually finally meet her in person and have a dance, and
yeah, we turned up, and there were only about 100 people, and it was in like one of those typical sort of London townhouses. I think it was in the East End somewhere. Can't remember. Anyway, we turned up, and suddenly chatting with Stella McCartney, Alexander McQueen, got introduced to him, and Christina Aguilera. I don't know, I had a dance with Kate and Jefferson on the dance floor, and I remember Jefferson complimented on our look at the time. Remember we had our dress.
It was quite distinct, wasn't it, our time?
Feathers.
We used to walk down the streets of London with the pill hats and our painted tie singlets. We had these little singlets with the tie painted on it, and we'd have our vintage feathered hats on and
a lot of
all
sequins,
sorts of things.
Studs.
And we were just so shocked that people were looking at us like...
Yeah, because we felt like it was such a... Well, we were happy, we loved the look, and we didn't think it was that theatrical or dramatic, but I guess it was.
It was very theatrical.
Anyway, this party was super fun, and yeah, just a lot of great people were there that we had admired in the industry, and so it was just a super sort of exciting night to be amongst some of those people. And
The Australian queens of fashion presented their final collection, Freetown, at New York Fashion Week. And the colour white was dominating this spring collection, complemented with fresh graphics, prints and embroidery. There were classic Sass and Bide pieces, as well as their signature layering of light materials against structured materials and other pieces. As always with Sass and Bide, the audience was presented with a modern take on a sense of haute bohème.
So the collection's called Freetown, and it was really a celebration of free creative spirit. The vision was for it not to be definable, so I didn't want people to be able to harness it or put it in a box or a category. So it was really the inspiration came from many places that we'd visited, and even emotional experiences that we'd had in these places. Then I wanted to channel that into a new polished aesthetic for Sass and Bide.
Swagger down the street with your red lips and funky beat. You better hold your head up to the sky. I'm gonna roll with you till the day I die.
So aware of how lucky we were, and we'd talk about that, and there was just good. We always got along very well. We remained best friends, through that whole time. So that, I guess, that was a bit contagious as well. We were having fun. We couldn't believe that we were able to, have this career and be best friends and having these experiences and traveling and creating and just getting the response we were. So it was a real dream for us as well,
Sass and Bide designers Sarah Jane Clarke and Heidi Middleton have cut ties with the label, which brings a close to their 15-year collaboration. The pair, whose low-cut denim jeans became a cult look in the late 90s, started their careers selling designs at London's Portobello markets. Maya paid more than $40 million for a 65% stake in Sass and Bide in 2011 and took full ownership in September 2013. Heidi says they wanted to leave while in really strong health and with the brand still flourishing. While there's no word on what they plan to do, design director Anthony Cuthbertson is now at the helm, and we can't wait to see what he does for next season.
Clarke and Middleton would stay on to oversee the creative direction of their eponymous label until their departure in 2014, allowing them to refocus on their young families and also other ventures. Despite leaving, the designers spoke of the future of the brand and their new vision.
So my name's Paula McKenzie. I'm currently the Group Managing Director for 3 brands, being Sass & Bide, Marks and David Lawrence, all 3 really iconic Australian brands, so lucky to be in that position. I've worked with many great brands in my career. I've worked with Sass & Bide in the past as well, so I've got worked with both Heidi and SJ, and also worked with people who are now sort of really moving forward with their brands. So with Marks and Mark Keary, a fantastic team of people who have then gone on to be involved in Manning Cartel, Jack and Jack, Basic, a real incubator of talent, and I've found that to be a similar thing in other brands I've worked with. In Sass & Bide, a similar thing where we've got a lot of people who we worked with are now off doing their own thing in the industry. I started back at East Sydney College many, many years ago with the wonderful Nick Huxley, and that's how I first started. And the pressure would have been for them, they're having to do the 4 collections a year, and the expectation on a brand that is performing the way it is to continue with that performance. So having to be, you know, wildly creative and incredibly successful and come up with really new ideas that had a lot of time and effort in each garment, so a lot of print or embellishment or beautiful pattern making, and to have to do that consistently would have been incredibly high pressure. Obviously, from a financial point of view, as you start getting bigger, you start growing, and then the costs of your business also become bigger, and then that becomes a bit of a burden. So you've got more workforce, you've got more stores. The machine just seems to be constantly hungry, and for people like Heidi and SJ, who are genuine and very authentic people, and for Heidi, who's in her soul was about creating something really beautiful and unique, to do that in a machine that is constantly demanding would be quite stressful, I would think. But they as people did not bring that into the office. They were extremely professional, but also really caring and kind to everyone. So it wasn't, it didn't feel like a high pressured environment as such. It was very much about a family.
So that's why I think both Sarah Jane and I, even since leaving Sass & Bide, and having had a chance to reflect on that, it just didn't make any sense to start a new brand within that same business model. So yeah, there's huge amounts of pressure. I know we sold to Myer in 2013, and we probably could have sold even a year or 2 earlier, because at that point it was just, working ridiculous hours, 7 days a week, non-stop. There was no time to even try and be creative, because we were just chasing our tails and trying to make everyone happy. And at the end of the day, it was, I know I felt, felt like I was close to sort of burnout point. And I did have a period of time where I was unwell, in 2007, and I directly link becoming unwell to that pace of the business, and that I really feel like that was the probably the root, the cause of being unwell, becoming unwell.
David Briskin was a part owner, and he was the CEO who I reported into. And what we really did is just work on building the ranges, opening stores, getting the brand, performing in those stores, but also representing the brand with VM, in wholesale, and in my concession stores. So what I really took from that experience, Sass and Bide was absolutely at its peak at this point, and it was really just, in the international market, performing extremely well. The girls, Heidi and SJ, were doing a great job. They had a unique approach to what they were doing, and it really resonated. So definitely from a very artistic, creative background. So it wasn't really just about churning clothes, it was about designing and that true creativity around making beautiful product. And that really resonated with the Australian consumer and the international consumer. They were lovely to work with, and that ethos of being really decent and caring people went right way through the business, and it was really important to them that that was what the energy of the business was, and that's how we treated our customers and the consumers as well. So it was a very high performing and in many ways highly stressed, I would think, but also extremely calm and enjoyable and supportive environment.
It's a shame because the brand, it still exists, but it's just nothing like, the original Sass and Bide was a brilliant brand, yeah.
Sarah Jane and Heidi is really beautiful people that I met them through David Jones. I didn't go to see their first show either at the Fashion Week, but as a lot of designers did, David Jones actually had a great runway show and then after parties, and so that's when actually we got on very well, And then what was really lovely about actually Sarah and Heidi was I just felt actually really a sense of respect from them. The fact that actually I suppose actually I started actually being myself in business and showing collection in Paris, late 90s. So before they become known, and they were actually I admire their success, but I think I find actually we had a mutual respect, which was really lovely. Yeah.
So the brand's DNA back then the words we used were the strong, the beautiful and the obscure. And they're still words that we have in the brand DNA today because they encompass what is different about Sass when you compare it to other brands in the market in Australia and overseas. So there really was this strength of woman, and it was very much about a confident woman. And that's, that was them as well, and they epitomised that. They stood together as two women in the industry and achieved an enormous amount. Beautiful because, as I said, there was a really strong focus on creating beautiful garments, and obscure because there was the unexpected in what they did and in little bits about, the garments. I remember there was a fantastic jacket and it just had shells embroidered all over the shoulders, It was fantastic and shows where Heidi had big horse heads on top of the girls, and, it was a sense of fun, but not quirky, but definitely that confidence and strength, and a little bit irreverent in some ways. So that's what they did that was unique and was different, and that's was the heart and soul.
And despite the change in ownership, the legacy of the founders, Sass and Bide, remains intact. The brand's innovative designs, unconventional approach to fashion and commitment to pushing boundaries have left an indelible mark on the industry. In 2023, the brand had passed its 20-year milestone, something few Australian fashion brands have ever managed to do. It's a rare thing, particularly for Australia, to see a brand thrive beyond the life of its founders. Like long-standing European houses, much of the history and tradition is kept alive through contact with pieces that have been around since the brand's origins. A vault or an archive is a key tool used to record and protect and inspire future guardians of the brand's legacy. Sass & Bide had the foresight to stow away these pieces for the posterity. The vault of their handcrafted pieces goes to the heart of one of the key legacies Sarah Jane and Heidi wanted to instill. And their work with the Ethical Fashion Initiative in Africa meant that local artisans were offered respectful work within the fashion industry, restoring traditional techniques and keeping the culture alive. Art, culture, travel were key inspirations for the designers. So this enabled them a direct line to their creative source while contributing to the quality and depth of the industry and its craftsmen. Middleton and Clark's vision, creative genius, combined with their ability to build a global fashion empire, and their story immortalised in this film series, is sure to inspire future generations of designers and fashion enthusiasts to embrace individuality, creativity, and fearlessness.